Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. Happy February. Can you believe it's already February? I think that's crazy. I think it's always crazy when the beginning of the year goes by so quickly, and it happens every single year. And yet, I am still surprised every single time, but that's okay. We're here, and we're here with a new episode of Overtures. So that's the exciting thing. I don't really have any housekeeping today. Later on today, I'm going to be going to see the Office parody musical off Broadway. So I'm stoked. I have a friend in it. So it's going to be a blast. But I'll tell you about how that show was next episode. But for now, let's go ahead and get started. So this is episode 57 of Overtures. Can you believe we're already up there too? That's also crazy. And I'm going to be starting with a clip. So here we go. Such a gorgeous little clip. So beautiful, so beautiful. So my guest today is an actor and singer based out of New Jersey and a recent graduate, getting over my words today, a recent graduate of Wagner College. Since graduating, she has completed an apprenticeship at the Shakespeare Theater of New Jersey and worked on Main Street USA with the Disney College program. She's beyond excited to be working with the cast and creative team of Lora for its upcoming off-Broadway debut as their stage manager. Although my senior year of college was her first year of college, I was lucky enough to work with her twice as she began her college career and as I ended mine. So without further ado, this is Claire Dempsey.
Hello.
Hi. I'm so stoked to finally have you on here.
I know. I'm so happy to be actually catching up with you too, because I haven't been able to see you.
I know, that's what's so nice about these episodes is that I actually get to sit down and have an hour to go in depth and be like, where have you been? What's up? What's happening? Because I feel like
Mhm.
you don't get that very often. You'll run into someone or like send a text and you never get the full story. So I'm very excited to be here and chatting with you today. And as many people might have guessed, we know each other from Wagner College. Um,
Crazy.
I will say I think it's incredibly funny that the two shows we work together are arguably like the most British plays we could have ever worked on together.
Yeah.
We did The Importance of Being Earnest as well as Pygmalion. I was your assistant director when you played Lady Bracknell in The Importance of Being Earnest.
Yes.
Such a wonderful little show.
It's really funny to me, like, looking back on it. It's like, I really thought I was, like, going somewhere with that. I was like, I'm getting in, like, the old lady lane, like, that's my niche at this school, like, because I did 2 old lady parts my freshman year, and I was like,
Yep.
I was especially for Importance of Being Earnest, I was so scared. I was like, "Oh my god, these upperclassmen, like, they're all so, like, talented, and I'm supposed to be playing, like, somebody's grandmother, like, what am I gonna do?" And then
But
I get in
here's
there, and
the
everybody's so sweet.
But here's the thing, not only was your British accent probably the strongest, but goddamn, you were hysterical. Your pacing as Lady Bracknell was, like, comedically fantastic. It was perfect for Oscar Wilde. Just, like, absolute chef's kiss. Like, oh, it
Thank
was so
you.
good. And how like, I'm so curious, what was that experience for you to be working on that show as a freshman, as, like, your first show at Wagner, and everyone else like, there was no other freshmen who worked on that show.
Correct. Yeah, I was definitely intimidated when I first got there, but,
Yeah.
like, everybody was so sweet, and Austin is an amazing director. Like,
Yes.
I truly would love to work with him again because it's just, like, he went so in depth with all the, like, mannerisms and stuff, and anything that I
Mhm.
felt like I didn't have a good, like, clue into, he would sort of already have it ready. He was like, "Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah.
we're doing a little tea together so that we can all learn how to hold saucer and do all this stuff." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Okay, great. That's awesome."
Yes.
Like, I just felt so, like, taken care of in that show. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. Like, I would say Austin is such a good, like, dramaturg as well as director, and he brings that kind of knowledge into the room as a director, which, again, like you were saying, it makes the actor feel so much more comfortable and taken care of because 'cause you're like, "Okay, cool, we actually know what we're doing. Great, love that."
Yes. And that was
Um,
also, like, when I met all of you, obviously, because I was
yeah.
brand new to the school, but,
Yeah.
like, I
Literally,
met
like,
Lila.
I was, like, first 3 weeks of college,
Yeah,
like
and I'm like, "Okay, time to be someone's grandma, I guess.
let me learn Oscar Wilde in 3 weeks.
Okay."
Absolutely crazy, but it like I said, such a fun show. And then, of course, the end of your freshman year, we worked on Pygmalion together. I was Eliza
Yes.
Doolittle to your Mrs. Higgins, and I just have to say, I felt so incredibly lucky to have you as my Mrs. Higgins in that show. Because, like, you kept me saying, because we got through such a long, crazy tech of that show, but
Yes.
to be able to end that show with you, because the end of the show is, like, us strong ladies being like, "F you, Professor Higgins," being like, "No, you can carry your own slippers, you idiot." It was so wonderful to be able to end that show together with 2 such strong female characters.
It was really wonderful working with you on that one because, like, just watching you, like, go through the journey of that show was just really awesome to watch, like, especially at the end, like, being up there with you and being like, "You can take care of this. I'm gonna go now." Like,
Yep.
"Okay."
Yeah. Oh, so special, and
It's
thank
so
you.
good.
That means so much to me. So I guess going back to the beginning of things for you, Claire, how did you first get started in theater?
Um, so I was thinking about this, I truly don't remember. I think, like, the first show I ever did was in, like, elementary school. It was Once Upon a Mattress,
Oh,
but
so
the f
good.
first show that I, like, really remember doing was
Mhm.
Seussical at the same school, and it was very funny. I was one of the Who's, my brother was the Cat in the Hat, and I was devastated. Oh my god. I was like, I'm 2 years younger than him, but I was like, "Oh my god, no, I wanted to be like a bird girl or something at least," like, and I remember, like, we got, like, little letters with, like, what our role was, and we were
Oh my
sat at, like,
gosh.
a Friendlies, and my brother opens his, and he's like, "Oh my god, I'm the Cat in the Hat," and I was like, "Emma, oh, no," and I was, like, crying in this Friendlies.
Oh my
It was
god.
really funny, but, yeah.
I love
So
that. Humble beginnings, humble beginnings.
Yes, truly.
So then I'm curious then, after that disappointment of only getting to play a Who and Seussical, what was that overture moment for you realizing, oh, like this isn't just a thing that I do with my brother, but something that I want to pursue like for a career?
So, like, I truly don't remember a time when it wasn't, like, my thing. Like,
Mm,
I was sort of going through life under the assumption that this is what I was gonna do, and then I reached, like, sophomore year of high school, and I was like, "Crap, like, I have to actually think about this now." Like,
yeah,
it's not just like, "Oh, this is what I'm doing. This is the assumption. This is what I'm, like, going to go do." I was like, "Oh, I need to actually have a reality check with myself."
right.
And so I was lucky enough to be able to go on this 3-week trip with Performing Arts Abroad, and I went to London, and I was like, "Okay,
Mm,
if I can do this," because it's, like, basically 9 to 4 classes, like, master classes, improv classes, like, dance, all this kind of stuff, and then we had, like, shows scheduled to go to in the evenings, and then
mhm.
also me and my friends would go see shows, like, on our own. And I was like, "Okay, if I can do that and I'm not sick of it, then I know I can, like, withstand it, like,
Yeah.
actually going to school for it." And I did the most. I was like, "I want more." I got there and I was like, "I'm doing absolutely everything," because also the tickets were so cheap. So
Yes.
I saw, like, 15 shows while I was there. I, like, would go every single night. I would be, like, waking up the crack of dawn to go to class, and then I would, like, get tickets on my lunch break, and then I would go back to class and then go see it in the evening, and, like, that
Yeah.
was my life for 3 weeks. I would just be, like, living, breathing, eating, sleeping theater. I was like, "I want it."
And by the end of it, you were like, wow, I actually want more still. I'm not
Yeah,
tired. I want more.
exactly.
Yeah, that's definitely how you know. That's definitely how you know. So then it's fun because then obviously you had an entire career at Wagner after I graduated.
Yes.
And I would love to hear about some various highlights like through your sophomore and senior year, be it like a class or a show. Obviously, we got to see that clip from Little Women at the top of the episode. So I'd love to hear about some things you did.
Yes. I was very happy I got to round it out with, like, 10 shows.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
so I'm trying to think. I mean, I will say, like, sophomore, junior year was obviously crazy town
Of
because of.
course, the pandemic.
Yes, but before the pandemic hit in, the fall, of my sophomore year, I got to do She Loves Me, which is my favorite show, so I was
Yes.
just very happy to be able
I
to
was
do
so
that.
happy that you got to be in She Loves Me because I know you and I
Yeah,
both share such an affinity for that show.
it's so special, I love it. Um, I loved doing Into the Woods. I was Rapunzel, which I was, like, taken aback when that cast list came out. I was like, somebody, like, sees me as, like, the little frail little princess? I was like, "I can do that? That's crazy." But the other thing that was fun about that is, not to toot my own horn, but I did take most of the score up the octave just because, um,
Please tell me you have clips of this.
I don't, and I'm so mad about it.
No. Oh, that makes me so sad, but continue.
It's really devastating. It's the one show that nobody bootlegged, but
Damn.
it, was very fun for me to be able to, like, have my moment and do that and, like, talk to people afterwards and have professors come up to me, be like, "What?"
You really got to, like, put your stamp on it and make it your own, which is
Yes.
it's so undeniably cool when you're like, "I've done something that's actually original with a role that other people have done."
Yes. And then, I mean, this is just a little side note, but the hair was in fact, 18 pounds and 15 feet long, so
Oh my
I
god,
got
that's
quite the workout
insane.
with that show.
Yeah, I'm like, at that rate, like, I'm also trying to figure out, like, is that just, like, hurting your neck? Like, do you like, would you carry how does that work? How?
I started going to the gym and just doing, like, back and upper neck stuff for
Wow.
that show because I was nervous.
Yeah.
Um, but, one of the, uh, costume assistants, Hannah Sapitan, I don't know if you know them, but
That name's not
they're
familiar. Okay.
very sweet friend of mine. Um, they were basically like, assigned to me for quick changes and stuff, and I was like, "Hey, you're not doing anything during these scenes. Do you mind just helping me carry my hair up the stairs?" Because I would have to go, like, from the basement up to the actual theater and then up to the rafters where my entrance was.
Oh
And so we would,
gosh.
like, the two of us would sit up there holding this massive pile of, like, it was a mix of, like, straw and yarn and actual hair, and then there was, like, a
Yeah.
chain holding it all together, which is what made it so heavy. But, it looked stunning because
Yeah.
it looked like something right out of, like, a fairy tale book, which is what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
But, the two of us would just be sitting up there with the massive hair and, like, listening to Agony and doing our own little bits in the wings. It was really fun.
I love that so much. And that also, like, now that you say, I'm like, of course it has a chain in it. That makes sense. It holds everything together. It makes it look like hair that has weight to it. That makes sense. But I'm also like, God, that is like a lot to like have to wear as an actor. Like that's so heavy. Like that's mind-boggling to me.
It was
That's crazy. But I'm so sad that I didn't get to see that. But um I wish there was a bootleg. That
I
makes me
know.
upset.
Also, just, like, working with Katie Sheely specifically, because obviously her and I worked
Yes.
really close together on that because she was the witch. I
Yeah.
was like, I mean, there were moments where I was genuinely like, "Oh my god, I'm scared of her." Like, she's
I'm sure
incredible in this.
her witch was, like, terrifying.
It really was, and, like, I remember the first time we did it, like, in full costume when she was, like, throwing me down, I was, like, genuinely a little scared. I was like, "Oh my god, like, this is powerful stuff."
Oh
It was
my
great.
gosh, that's so special. I love that. And then, of course, you worked on Little Women, and you sounded stunning in that clip. And I
Thank
know
you.
that was your last show, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was very special for
Yeah.
me. I also, I got to costume that show as well.
Oh, that's so awesome.
So I was, like, a little nervous going into it because I was, like, doing double duty, and the costumes for that show are absolutely brutal because it's, like, every time somebody leaves stage and then they come back, it's a time jump. So there has to be
Yeah.
some indication that time has passed.
Yeah.
So genuinely, every time somebody would leave stage, at least one costume piece would change.
Right, and of course, like, it's in a period too, so, like, time jumps within period costumes. It's like and also, it was a student-run production.
Yes.
So, it's not like you could just, like, "Oh, let me just go through, like, the whole closets of costumes." Like, that must have been crazy to try and, shop for those costumes.
Well, the reason they asked me to do it is because, they know that I have, like, an affinity for, like, period costumes, and I love that stuff, and
Yeah.
also my mom, her, like, retirement job is she volunteers at a costume barn here in New Jersey,
Oh, I love that.
with Trilogy Repertory, which I've worked with that theater, and that's how she got started, like, going and hanging out with them, and so I got to basically, like, pillage the racks and, like, just
Oh,
go in and, like, take all the stuff I wanted for, like, a very small budget because they knew, like, student run theater, obviously, and also it's Claire.
mhm.
We worked with her before. We know she's gonna return the stuff in good condition.
Yeah.
Um, so that was really awesome that I got to, like, go do that.
Yeah,
'Cause then I
and
was
that's
like,
very
"Yeah, like
special
this."
because, like, I even thinking back to, like, both Ernest and Pygmalion, I'm like, "I don't know how we did those costumes." Like, that was so tough. That was so tough.
'Cause we
Like,
were
trying to do
pulling out of our closets for that.
Oh, yeah, and, like, some people happen to have stuff at home, like, Emily Lagasse's, like, mom or something happened to have some of those, like, little tiny dresses for, like, Emily and Ernest, but, like, even then, that was so difficult, so that's
Yeah.
awesome that you had that opportunity to work with a theater that you'd worked with before and be like, "Hey, let us help you," and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, also just working on the show itself, it was a little bit tough because I was dealing with some health issues at the time, which I know we're
Yeah.
gonna talk about in a
Yeah.
little bit, but, it, like, was so special, especially because Meg is a role that I relate to a lot. Like,
Yeah.
we were sort of going through and saying, like, who in the cast was actually be which sister, and it kinda lined up for
Yeah.
me a lot just because I'm like, she's a romantic and she's very, like, I don't know, she likes to take care of people and, like,
Mhm.
obviously, the vocal range was something I was super comfortable with, and I was just,
Yeah.
like, very happy to be doing that.
Yeah, and she's also very practical too. Like she's this romantic, but she's always making sure, okay, but like we need to get these things like figured out.
Mhm.
And yeah, she's a wonderful character, and it's so awesome that you got to play her. So you did the Shakespeare Theater of Jersey's apprenticeship. When did you
Yes.
do this, and how did you become a part of it?
So I had done their, like, senior core program my senior year of high school, like,
Mhm.
just, over the summer, and it's like they put on a little mini version of a show. We did Winter's Tale, and, like, so I was sort of on the radar for, like, stuff that they were working on, and then I realized that they had this apprenticeship program, and I applied, and I wanted it so bad because I literally live, like, down the street from their amphitheater, and I grew
Mm,
up going to go see their shows, and, like, that was, like, the pinnacle of Shakespeare for me, and I
yeah.
am a Shakespeare girly through and through. I love
Yes,
it.
yes.
Um, and I remember I got the call that I, like, got in the program, and they accepted, like, 10 people total.
Right.
Um, and I was in a voice lesson with Amy Williams, and I saw the, like, area of, like, the area code, and I was
Mhm.
like, I'm gonna pick this up," and I do, and, like, she's like, "Hey, just wanna let you know we want you to come in for this," and I was like, "Oh, that's so exciting," and I just start crying in my voice lesson. I'm like, "Ah!" It was very fun. But, the way that worked was we got some, like, little master classes here and there, but most of what we were doing was working on the summer show. Like, we were
Mhm.
in their summer season, which was, Much Ado About Nothing, which is my favorite
Oh,
Shakespeare play.
that's a good one. Oh my gosh.
So, I, was just kind of in, like, a general ensemble for that show, which we had kind of a, um, 1800, like, era to it, and so we had, like, a carnivale, like, that was the where
Mhm.
we were setting it, so I was one of the little, like, carnival girlies, and I was, like, sticking my leg up above my head and doing all this stuff. I was juggling, but then, um, one of the actresses came down with COVID,
Mm.
and, they asked me to go on for her for our week of tech and previews, which was I had a week turnaround, and it
Oh my
was
gosh.
crazy, but it was so rewarding to be able to do that.
Yeah, and what role did you have to end up going on for?
It was Margaret, so it's not a
Yeah.
huge role, but it was enough that I was like, "Ugh," like,
Yeah,
a little stressed.
that's still at least, like, set lots of lines of dialogue to be like, "Okay, let me get this down ASAP."
Yes, and, like, there was dialogue over a dance, like, they would be
Oh my
dancing and then
gosh.
have dialogue mid-scene, so that was the part I was most worried about, was getting the
Yeah,
timing of everything in that, because I was in the dance sequence already, but,
that's a different track.
it's a different track, and, like, being, like, 2 groups off, because we would, like, sort of swirl around each other and then, like, stop for a minute when certain people would talk, and then we would
Mhm.
swirl around for a minute, and,
You
it
never
was
you
a
never got to watch it because you were doing other things.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, the summer after you graduated, Wagner?
Yes, this was this
That's
past summer.
awesome. Gotcha. And so did you get to do, like, obviously you were in Much Ado About Nothing, you said there was little, like, classes and things throughout, were they, like, all Shakespeare pertaining?
Yes, it was all, Shakespeare classes. We had some master classes actually from people in the show, which was wonderful.
That's cool.
Our hero actually, like, ran a class for us, and it was phenomenal. I was like, I honestly, over the course of, like, just doing that apprenticeship, I felt like I had earned a whole 'nother degree. I was like, I feel, like, so much more prepared for everything just having talked to these people and, like, getting this
Yeah.
information and doing this show, because we ran for a month. Like,
Mm,
it was a long run,
yeah.
for me at least, like, having just done, like, college shows and
Yeah, like
community
2
theater and stuff
weekends,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, it was, we also did a little, like, they also had different interns, like, in different departments. So there was a directing intern named
Mhm.
Jake who, put together a couple of scenes for us, and we did a, like, apprentice evening, basically, and
Oh,
so
nice.
I got to be in a couple scenes. I did one from Romeo and Juliet, one from Troilus and Cressida, and one from All's Well That Ends Well. So that was also really fun to get, like, the performance experience of being in this show and then also doing another little something on the side to just kind of keep myself sharp and work on new material.
Yeah, it wasn't just a contract. You truly were continuing that education while
Yes.
getting to perform at night, and that's so awesome. And it was so cool to see former Wagner alum and also Overtures episode Danielle Allen comment. She's like, "Yay, another like apprentice!" Like, so she had also done it. So it's cool to get to
Oh,
talk to someone else about it.
I love
Um,
it.
and then you also just finished the Disney College program. So I'm assuming that happened then, like right after um,
Yes.
the Shakespeare, apprenticeship.
I felt like I was pulling a hard left with that. I was just like, okay, I'm like in the world of Shakespeare. I'm all like, prim and proper. Then I'm like, I'm gonna go work at Disney.
Yeah.
Bye.
That
Like,
was incredible. Were you, like, in the middle of applying to that, like, while you were at the apprenticeship, or was that something you had applied to, like, at Wagner, but you knew it wasn't gonna come up until later?
I had applied like winter break my senior year,
My
completely
god.
on a whim.
Yeah.
Like I was not expecting anything to come of it. Also, like I didn't realize they had truncated their interview process because of COVID. Like I
Mm.
didn't have a phone interview or anything. Like they've just reinstated it, so it's going to be a thing now. But I basically just did the preliminary applications like in my basement when they popped up on my computer. I was like, oh, I'll do this now. And then they called me in like February and were like, congratulations, you got in. I was like, I did.
That's
And
wild.
I wasn't gonna do it because I thought I had something else lined up that didn't end up pulling through. But my parents were just like, look, if they haven't reached out to you by now, this other thing, then just do it. Like there's no
Yeah.
harm in just signing up and doing it. Cause I was nervous about like, leaving the city and like doing all this stuff.
Mhm.
But it was like the best decision I could have made for myself going and doing that. It was
Ha
so great.
had you always, thought that you were gonna or knew had you always known that you were gonna apply for the program? Because I feel like a lot of people, like, when they're in college, they're like, "I will be doing the Disney College program."
Yeah, I did want to do it. Just because like it's always been something in the back of my mind, like especially like if any connections to entertainment down there
Mhm.
that I could get would be great, and like just having the experience of having done it,
Yeah.
like even if it wasn't a job that I necessarily wanted to have, which I
Right.
do have a story about that. I narrowly escaped a job that I really would not have done well in, I think.
Well, I would
But
love to hear that first because I was about to ask about working at Main Street USA, but if there was something you, narrowly escaped, I'd love to hear that first if you're willing to talk about it.
well, because I am not a sports girly, if you may have guessed. And originally, my placement was at ESPN Sports.
Ooh.
And
Is
I
that's
was
in Disney?
yes, that is part of Disney.
I
And
didn't know ESPN was in Disney.
what was confusing to me was, that it was, like, under the attractions designation, so I was like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna be working on a ride, that's great." And then
Mhm.
they said ESPN, and I was like, "Hello?"
Good.
But I guess if you're operations, that's the same thing with Main Street GFT is, like, I was technically an attraction, but it was, like,
Mm.
glorified parade control.
Yeah.
Um, but they called me because I have like a food allergy and I put that in the system so that I wouldn't be working in quick service because I wasn't comfortable like handling those foods.
Right.
And they were like, "Hey, I just want to ask like if it's possible for you to be near whatever you're allergic to." And I was like, "Yeah, no, that's fine." And they were like, "Do you have any other questions?" And I was like, actually, do you have any other positions available? Because I heard something. I like there was something being thrown around about possibly being able to audition once you got down there, and I was like, "Do you know anything about that?" And they were like, "No, we're not starting that up just yet. I can look around for other placements for you, though." And I was like, "Please do that." And he was like, "Do you want to work on Main Street?" I was like, "Yes, I want to work on Main Street." So that's how I ended up there.
Hey, never hurts to ask, so I'm glad that
Exactly.
that
It
worked
never
out.
hurts to ask.
I love that. And of course, apologies. I have never been to Disney World, just Disneyland. So, Main Street USA, that's where like there's tons of shops and obviously like the parades and such and where the fireworks happen, right?
Yes.
Amazing. Amazing. What was it like to be based there and have to like work in and around that?
It was really fun. I really think I lucked out with my placement because um there is a certain level of freedom that you get working there because oh, I have a dog now. Hello. Um you obviously like have your positions for parades and fireworks, but in the kind of in between time, you're kind of just stationed to be like the friendly face on Main Street. Like you talk to guests, you answer questions. Sometimes if we have like a lot of downtime, they'll do the little like tape fun box and like, you know, have people jump in and out and like clap for them and all this kind of stuff. Hi, can you sit, please?
Got a furry visitor.
Yes, we do. But I got there, I think, at the perfect time because I got there at the height of like party season. So they have the Halloween party and the Christmas party. So because I'm a CP, they put me on a lot of evening shifts just because, you know, the daytime people are mostly full-time who've like bid for that and all that. So I got to have like half my time basically be at the Christmas and Halloween parties, which I loved. Like that was my favorite part of the job because I would get to do like the parade positions that normally go to the daytime people, but we do them at night for the Christmas and Halloween show, which were phenomenal, by the way. I loved watching those every night. And then on the off nights, we would have the fireworks. So I really was doing something different every day during that whole season.
Yeah, that sounds like that's so much more fun because like it literally is something different that you can work on every day and it's not like, okay, I'm doing the same thing over and over, especially in like the holiday season, like there's so much different variations of program and things like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious because like I feel like I don't know much about the Disney College program. So you were saying that you do the shifts like at night because you're a part of the program. What are you guys doing like during the day? I guess it depends on like what track you're in and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I mean, there are definitely people who get scheduled the mornings. It obviously depends on what operation you're in.
Right.
Like people in like food and beverage were much more likely to get morning shifts than we were. But just because of like our operation was such like a singular thing. It's like we were Main Street operations. Like that's it. And like that was very much divided into like the daytime full-time people and then the part-time and the college programs who would get scheduled with fireworks because a lot of the daytime people were like, I did my time with fireworks. I do not need to do that again.
That's fair.
Because it is really a hoot and a half sometimes, especially with the traffic flow and everything.
Yeah, people wrangling, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Absolute craziness. Oh my gosh. And so it's great because we have a little Instagram question from someone we are both familiar with. The lovely Leah Mabate had the question, what's one surprising thing you've learned while being at Disney College program?
Surprising thing? I'm trying to think. I've learned a lot about like obviously the parks themselves and like little inside things. I think just like learning all the ins and outs of like how like traffic flow works, I guess, was like kind of surprising to me because it's like we would get like, you know, a map for the fireworks and you would have, first of all, take a wild guess how many people it takes to run fireworks on just a standard evening.
Oh gosh. I mean in terms of like just
and this
organizing
is
like
just crowd control.
Yeah, just crowd control. I could imagine, I mean, granted, like I haven't been there, so this is gonna be a wild guess. Like I would say maybe like around like 50 people, like just to make sure people are in the right places and stuff.
There are 83 positions, and some of them are doubled.
Oh my god. That's crazy.
So it takes upwards
just
of 100
to do
people.
Fireworks.
Yes, just for fireworks.
Oh my god.
Because people will line up at like 6 p.m. and fireworks aren't till 8:15, and they'll just sit there and they're like, this is my spot, and I am working for it. I'm like, yes, you do that.
which is funny to me because I'm like, well, you're wasting your time not going on rides or like eating food, but also like everyone's going to see the fireworks. Like you're not going to miss it, I promise.
Yes, it's just there are like a projection show that goes with it. So it's like some people like really want to see the projection show. And like I understand like sitting there, especially if you've like had a full day and you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna grab my dinner, I'm just gonna sit right here, and then I'm gonna have my spot. Which is better than like, you know, having people run up at the last second and you're like trying to fill your area. You're like, okay, fine, just come here.
Well, like what you were saying though, crowd control really is an art. Like I've gotten to talk to like a few people who have like worked at Disney before and then have like translated that to like crowd control at like conventions and things like that. It really is an art of making it work and making things condensed and not confusing.
Yes. There's a lot of like interpersonal stuff that you have to sort of be well versed in to be able to do that kind of stuff. So I definitely learned a lot just talking to people in that job and like
Yeah.
figuring out how to like de-escalate certain situations, because it would get a little crazy, especially I actually worked New Year's Eve. So that was wild, especially because
Yeah.
there was a DJ running the whole time. So we were trying to like usher while the DJ was going. And so we were just like shouting over this DJ. There's like strobe lights absolutely everywhere. Like they had added extra lights like throughout the entirety of Main Street, and they were just constantly going, like, please stand up. Like we didn't even talk at that point. We were just like,
Yeah, because no
the
one can
hands.
hear you. Yeah, just like all gestural communication.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I mean, no. Also, you don't want to hurt your voice. No one's gonna hear you at that rate. Like, oh my
I
god,
will
I
say that
can't.
is the one thing. My theater degree did pay off because I was loud. I was nice and loud.
Yeah, that's one thing. You're like, look, I know how to project if nothing else. So
Exactly. They like to put me on the turtle box every once in a while, which is like the little microphone we would get, and I would just be like absolutely talking from nowhere. I would just start saying words.
and everyone was like, you have fun doing that, and you're like, great, I will, thanks.
I will have so much fun.
And obviously, one big thing that I know we wanted to talk about as a part of this episode has been your personal experience with having COVID and its long-term effects, but also how that's impacted your experience in the theater industry and learning how to navigate accommodations.
Yes. So I got COVID January of last year, and like I had been dealing with stuff beforehand, but like I had just gotten that under control, and then those same symptoms started showing up like a month after I had COVID, and I was like, I thought I got this under control because it was a dietary thing, and I like had just figured that out, and I was like, okay, great, that's something I can handle. And then starting in about February, I was like, okay, this is no longer a dietary thing. Why is this happening? And it took a while for me to realize that it was like post-COVID related. Because my symptoms did start to like morph a little bit, but basically what would happen, and I would just be like very dizzy, like constantly tired. And then it got to the point where I would start to like actually fall over and like not be able to like go about my day. And obviously like being a senior in college, I was really kind of struggling with that. Hello, puppy. Oh my gosh. And I did on the 20th Century and Little Women while like having this issue. It was much more of a thing during Little Women, I think, just because of like how it progressed. But there's one moment I remember during On the 20th Century where I looked, it's kind of funny to me now, but I looked at Val, who was my dance partner. Like we were on the turntable and it was about to like spin to reveal like us, and we were like in a party scene. It was supposed to be like a posh party scene. So we're like the turntable was going to turn and then we were all going to be like, oh, ha, ha, ha. Like that's how the scene starts.
Yeah.
And I turn to him and I just go, Val, I'm really dizzy. And he goes, what? And then the turntable starts to go and we all go, ha, 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 ha. It's just the most perfect timing for that, for me to have said that. But I was sort of navigating like how much I actually should and could push through in terms of like performance and stuff like that. And I realized that like I could do a fair amount of pushing through if I was in like, you know, if I was mid-scene, I wasn't going to fall over because I knew how to navigate that. But especially during Little Women, I was, you know, trying to figure out how to not like be, I guess like not be like a problem, but like, you know what I mean? Like not put a damper on the show and put a damper on everybody else's progress. So I ended up working something out with the director and with my like understudy who was one of the swings. And I was just like, hey, if I'm having like a really bad night, can I have her go on for rehearsal? I'll still sit there and I'll take notes and I'll watch. But like, if I can't stand up and do this, I can't stand up and do this. Like there's no getting around that. And there was also something I was definitely dealing with at Shakespeare Theater and really, really dealing with on Main Street recently.
Right.
Um, we are closer to having like actual answers and like get working toward a system that is going to work for me long term.
Good.
But I think especially since like, a lot of people in the theater community have had COVID. And so it's not unthinkable that a lot of actors are having this problem right now. And
Absolutely.
like, you need to be able to like advocate for yourself and know that like just because you have some limitations, it doesn't mean that you're not capable of performing in the same way. Like you can
Mhm.
still tell a story, you can still be a performer. You just have to know your own limits a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's been a journey, I'll say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, especially when you're dealing with something that could literally stop you mid-scene or, like, stop in the middle of a show where you're like, "I quite truly cannot complete this for my own health." Like, it's something that you have to be able to, like, bring up to people, and I know one thing that when we were, like, emailing a bit about wanting to talk about this, we were saying about, like, learning to a learning how to ask for accommodations without feeling like you're coming off as quote unquote hard to work with or coming off as
yes.
less than capable, which I do want to put this out there right now. These are impressions that exist because we live in an ableist society, so we shouldn't
Yes,
have to
absolutely.
worry about these things. But what was that journey like for you, wanting to make these accommodations but also trying to deal with that part of your brain that's being like, I don't know because blah 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 blah, you know?
I mean, I still am working on that because I
Yeah.
am very stubborn. I do not like to give up on anything. And
Yeah.
so, for Little Women in particular, I like would just kind of like go and sit in between scenes. Like that was my thing I would do like for me. I would like have this high adrenaline moment and then I would go sit and I would just kind of like relax and fold into myself a little bit more. And I definitely had to start making a few more like actual accommodations once I was working on Main Street just because it is it can be a high stress environment because
Yeah.
you're dealing with guests, they're not always happy. Sometimes they can be a little loud and a little in your face, and obviously there's fireworks going on in the background, so there's a lot happening,
And you're
and your
constantly on
system
your feet, like
exactly, and your system can get a little overloaded. And I worked closely with like some of my coordinators especially, um, and I would tell them, like this is sort of the process of what I've been going through, and if I was having a bad day I would tell them like, hey, this is my position for tonight, I'm not comfortable with this position because I feel like I might have to leave mid fireworks, so if you could put me somewhere where I'm going to be less like of a key position. Like if they would put me somewhere, for instance, on a microphone, I might say like, you might not want to put me there tonight just because I'm not really feeling up to it.
Yeah.
But it did not mean I was any less good at my job.
Yeah.
I knew when I had to step away. And I will be honest, there's some nights I didn't know when I had to step away.
Yeah.
Because I did have over the course of those months, I had 4 ambulances called on me and 1
Oh.
hospitalization. Because
Oh
I
my
mean, part of it is
gosh.
just that they did have to, call an ambulance. Like if somebody's unresponsive, you have to call an ambulance. Like that's just
Yeah.
kind of how it is. And like, but having had those experiences, I know a little bit better now what my actual limitations are. And like I said, since that's happened, I've like started working towards a system that is actually making it better and making the day to day a lot easier. So
Yeah.
I'm working back towards getting like my full energy levels and my actual abilities back.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm curious, what advice might you have from what you've learned thus far to some who are perhaps on a similar journey, finding it difficult to speak up for themselves or they don't know what kind of accommodations to ask for?
I think just letting people know like what your symptoms and triggers are is really important because
Yeah.
you can always like say that you don't need help in general until you're in a situation where you do need help and then you don't know what to do. So if you just say like, hey, this is something that happens, but you don't necessarily have to say anything past that. And then if you're in a situation where like you find yourself not feeling well, then you can say, hey, remember that thing I told you about? That's happening now. And then from there, you can spark a conversation where somebody can ask like, oh, is there something I can do to help? Because you don't always want someone like constantly behind you saying like, oh, you told me to help you with this, can I help you with this? It's like, no, I'm still a capable individual. It's just that like some days are good days, some days are bad days. And so you know, having that conversation early on about just like what the symptoms and triggers are, and not putting down like the blanket rule of like, you're always going to need to help me with this, you know?
Right. Yeah. It's like it's not going to be the same thing every time. So
Exactly.
kind of having that plan and or freedom of being like, I sometimes face this symptom. It really will depend in the moment what we do, but at least you know this is something that I deal with symptom wise so that we can attack it together when the time comes.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I
that
know
makes
it's kind of just like rambling, but
no, that's okay. No, that makes sense. And like having those kinds of again, like accommodations and plans in mind. And I agree, knowing these things early on, I'm sure helps everyone feel at ease because then you're like, okay, cool. We know ahead of time and we don't have to like freak out in the moment if we need something.
yes.
Yeah, that 100% makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing your story about that and what you've been dealing with that because I think it's incredibly important to talk about because like you were saying, I'm sure there are so many actors who are dealing with it and trying to navigate, especially if there's someone who hasn't been dealing with medical issues before and don't
Yes.
know how to go about that journey. That I'm sure that hearing your story must have been very helpful. So thank you for talking about it with us. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
no problem. I
Yeah.
think yeah, the other big thing I did forget to say is like
Oh, yeah.
you can't do everything and like nobody can do everything. So you
Yeah.
need to have a little bit of grace with yourself when there's like certain things that you like if you need to take a day off, take the day off. Like it's
Yeah.
not the absolute end of the world if you have to take a day off.
Yes, 100%, 100%. I feel like that applies in so many different scenarios, so I co-sign on that. Um, and so then coming up, the something that's coming up soon for you, you're gonna be stage managing off Broadway, which is
Yes.
so exciting. Will this be your first big project, like, as a stage manager? Did you get to do stage management work at all when you were at Wagner?
I did not. This was kind of out of left field for me.
Yeah.
I had worked with the writer before, and she was just having a conversation with my mom at the barn one day and was like, "Oh yeah, we're still looking for a stage manager and some backstage help." And I heard out and was like, "Hey, I heard you have a couple positions open. Like, I would love to help any way I can." And then she reached back out and was like, "All right, SM position's yours." And I went,
You're like,
"Okay."
"I was thinking backstage, but, sure."
And I am ready, but I'm not ready. I
Yeah,
will say that. I have, done my research. I've looked into like, the formatting of everything and like
yeah.
how
You have some paperwork templates,
yes,
like
and I'm like, I know how I want to attack this, but also we haven't gotten the ball rolling in terms of
Yeah,
a lot of the communication stuff because obviously it's a little far out.
yeah,
So, I'm excited to actually like, get in a room and figure out what the vibes are a little bit and
yeah,
go from there. I'm definitely throwing myself in the deep end, but I think it'll be good for me. I think I'm
yeah.
ready.
I think you are. I think you are. I think a combination of like having worked with the on your apprenticeship, but also just knowing like how to corral people from Disney. I
Yes,
feel like those
absolutely.
I feel like somehow combined here, I think you're gonna be golden. You're gonna be golden. It's just gonna be the paperwork being like, what all do I need to include? But I think you're gonna do a great job. Is the
Right.
show a play or a musical?
It is a musical. It's, sort of like a folktale, and I know a lot of the roles are going to be doubled, so somebody is gonna be playing somebody who is in, like, a high status world and in a low status world.
Oh,
So that's gonna be
cool.
really fun to see, and also one of the actresses at least one of the actresses is blind, so that's also gonna be really fun, and you get some fun representation in there.
Absolutely. And then again, going back to like accommodations and things like that, your experience having gone through what you have so far, I'm sure will be incredibly helpful going into this process because like as like straight up, you know what it's like to have to make like ask for accommodations yourself.
Yes.
So when others can ask you for accommodations, that's going to be so much easier for everyone.
Yes, I really hope I can, come in and just, like, be on her side a little bit.
Yeah,
So that'll be fun.
absolutely. That'll be so much fun. When and where will people be able to see the show?
So it's gonna be at the Alvin Ailey in March. So I will definitely
Ooh.
be posting information about it once it gets closer.
That's so exciting. Also, let me know, keep me in the loop, that kind of thing, because March isn't that far off, and I would love to come see the show. Amazing. It's crazy. We got through things so quickly today that we're pretty much at the end of our episode. Where can people find you on social media and that kind of thing?
So my Instagram is Claire_E_Dempsey, and that's kind of where I put everything right now, because I'm not too far stretched out at the moment.
Yeah. Amazing, amazing. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Lora_Marjoram and my website, www.loramarjoram.com. You can find this show on Instagram at Overtures Show, as well as here on YouTube, Overtures Show. That's where we go live. So this is home base, but Instagram is where you can find all the amazing information. Also on Spotify and Apple Music. So go check out previous episodes on the go and that kind of thing. And then we also have a Ko-Fi page. So if you feel so inclined to buy Overtures a cup of coffee. That'll go towards the operating costs that I have for this production that I do here and give me the chance to talk to more incredible artists like Claire. My next stream is going to be on Wednesday, February 8th with Katie Stone. I'm so excited to talk to her. Music and theater education type vibe. We went to high school together, so I'm so pumped to catch up with her. It's going to be a
So
blast.
cool.
But yeah, Claire, do you have any final thoughts for viewers live and in the future?
Um, if anyone's going to Disney, be nice to cast members. They're doing their best.
True, truly, especially in still a pandemic, they're doing their best. They've had long days. Please be
Yes.
nice. Please be nice. And with that, thank you so much for coming on here, Claire. And I hope everyone who's watching has an amazing day. But we'll see you later, everyone. Bye.
Bye.